him and say, "Have you read this yet?" That was what I felt whenever I heard Rakim spit, or for that matter, the last poets. That was the thing that had me murmuring lines from Childcraft. This affliction was enchantment and desire. It was pleasure, but also a deep need to understand the mechanics of that pleasure, the math and color behind words, and all the emotions they evoked. I imagine there are children who see a painting and cannot get the image out of their minds. I imagine they turn it over alone at night in the dark, haunted, considering and reconsidering, and a small, secret ecstasy grows in them each time they do this. And just behind this, a need to convey an ecstasy all their own. I was like that from the moment I could inscribe words into memory. And this instinct naturally linked to the world around me, because I lived in a house overflowing with language organized into books, most of them concerned with the community, as my mother would put it. And so it was made clear to me that words could haunt, not only in form, not only in their rhythm and roundness, but in their content. When I was 7 years old, my mother purchased a copy of Sports Illustrated for me. She taught me to read before I entered school and encouraged the practice however she could. And what more encouragement could there be than this issue of Sports Illustrated, which featured my hero, Tony Dorsett, running back for the Dallas Cowboys. This was 1983, an era of American football when running backs seemed as large as champions pulled out of Greek myth. How could a man of Earl Campbell's might move so fast, racing past one defender and then staving in the chest of another? How could Eric Dickerson run so high, against all convention, bounding through holes in the defense, an obvious target that was never caught? These days, I will occasionally watch an old clip of Roger Craig, through will alone, breaking off a 46-yard run against the Rams, or Marcus Allen reversing field in the Super Bowl. But back then, in an unwired world, stories, words, histories, none of it could be gotten on demand. If you bore witness to such a feat, as I did with Allen, it lived in memory until the broadcast gods decided you could see it again. And so a magazine featuring the exploits of one of these heroes was not just to me an assembly of words and stories. It was a treasure. Because I really did believe that Tony Dorsett was magic. He was 5'8", built ordinary as one of my uncles. But when he slid the Lone Starred helmet over his head, he transformed into something untouchable. I remember him darting through the defense, shifting direction at full speed, dancing, sprinting the length of the field, and outrunning an entire team. But whatever my affinity for Dorsett, this is not what I remember about that issue. In fact, until a few months ago, I'd forgotten that Dorsett was even on the cover at all, because deeper in the magazine, I found a story so unsettling, so horrific even, that it blotted out every adjacent detail. The story was titled, "Where Am I? It Has to Be a Bad Dream." Its subject was Darryl Stingley, who'd once been a wide receiver. I thought of wide receivers as mythical too, contortionists like Wes Chandler, extending back to snag a ball bouncing off into the ether, or acrobats like Lynn Swann dancing in the air. I absorbed these exploits on Sunday mornings through the highlights curated by the NFL itself. But a magazine like Sports Illustrated existed beyond the garden, out in the street, where journalism and literature collided. And out there was neither magic nor myth, only the realest of monsters. And so I read the true story of Stingley, who back in 1978 took a hit on a slant route and woke up in a hospital. The story began there, in the hospital, with Stingley unable to move a single limb, unable to call to his mother or wipe the tears running down his face. In an instant, the contortionist had been rendered quadriplegic. Only a few paragraphs in, I wanted to put the magazine down forever, to escape the story. But I was held fast by forces I could not then understand. I knew that there was something different in the storytelling, something in its style that pulled me toward it with the gravity of a star. Until I was there. I was on the field, yelling, pleading with Stingley to watch out for the incoming hit. And then in the hospital, right next to him.